Ding, 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 ding. I was thinking this. I don't normally go with a show right as the bell rings in the stock market, but this was the time we could organize today. And I was thinking maybe I need like Kramer. I need a bunch of noisemakers.
Oh no, don't go that route.
Don't go that route.
Don't buy, sell, sell. No, we don't need any more of that in this world. Let's have some intelligent analysis and let people come to their own conclusions.
Yeah, and my wife is commonly still asleep when I do the first show in the morning, so she may not appreciate the noisemakers either. Well, okay. Noisemakers, the reason I started off with ding, 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 ding is because I think most of the people in the audience today would probably be going, yeah, I'm a genius. So, so we hit 461 and change. The market backed off a little bit, maybe some profit taking at the very, very end. Normal volume around 90 million. What do you, this is much better than I thought it was going to do on the run up today. But I thought it might run up today, but I didn't think it was going to run up this much. What was your thinking as you watched the progress today?
Yeah, I mean, just like happy feelings inside. Really, I try not to look too much on a daily basis. I mean, we are doing covered calls and some stuff like that we watch the short term stuff for in general. We opted to skip this week because we were pretty bullish on production and deliveries, so we didn't want to participate in risk of this type of run up even before we have news.
Right.
So, I'm honestly just feeling very happy that, the stock is running where it is. In terms of the sentiment that might be driving it, I do think the market is kind of realizing that production and deliveries are going to be a lot higher than where analysts were previously thinking. If you're watching Troy Test, like if you subscribe to his Patreon, like it's just like throughout the entire quarter, it's been up, and we're like,
Right.
yeah, like, that makes sense.
And he was at 480, and he was 481 this morning. So that's
481, yeah, was the final, and honestly, like I wouldn't surprise me at all if we're quite a bit higher than that. Maybe, I think we'll be below 500. Could be wrong. I think the error bands are pretty wide at this point, but yeah, I think the level of optimism is well founded right now.
yeah,
But like,
the betting markets, I think, I don't know what it finished at, but earlier today was at 511.
oh, I did not see that. Wow, that's surprising.
That was a big number. I don't
That
think
is a big.
I'll be shocked at 511. I won't complain, but I would be shocked at 511.
Yeah, I would definitely be surprised. Like, it's not an impossible number, and it doesn't strike me as the sort of thing that'd be like, oh my gosh, how did Tesla do that? Like, I mean, the difference between 481 and 511 is not really that large when you think about it. So yeah, I mean, it's been a very strong quarter. But to me, as much as Tesla is like very clearly people are becoming aware of the AI story, and like that's the more important one in the long term, I think. But to me, like I'm having more and more people in my daily life that are realizing how good these products are. And they're like, like why would you buy a different vehicle? It's like kind of our thesis from 2020, 2021 is like reemerging now. It's like, oh, we were, it took a while for the, early adopters to go into the, early majority. But it seems like we've crossed that now where like more and more normal people who aren't tech nerds and, Tesla nerds like us are just realizing that this is just a darn good quality product.
Well, there is a lot of difference when you give a friend or a family member a test ride than there was when I first got it 4 years ago. Over 4 years. What? No, it's going to be 5 years. Oh my gosh. Anyway, you take out your family and they'd be going, oh, on
Yeah.
FSD because
Yeah.
it's like running over a curb or, and you'd be like, well, sometimes it does that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're like the apologist for like Tesla. You're like, oh, it's just learning. Like
That's
they're gonna
right.
use that error to make it better.
It's never happened before. It's never happened. I'm telling you, it's never happened.
It usually tries to kill me in a different way than what you just saw.
So, but now you take somebody on a ride and they go, "Oh my gosh, that's smooth." And I'm still on hardware 3, version 13.6. And still, I mean, I very rarely get any kind of an intervention of any kind. The other day, I think I was a little bit sad that it wasn't going, and so I gave it a little tap. I think they need to have a tap. They should leave the tap in, even when the steering wheel and the pedals are gone. You should be able to just give it a little tap,
Yeah.
a
Or
little
or
button,
I don't.
go.
I'm curious though. Like tapping is probably my most common intervention also, and like with V14, I'm just curious to see like will tapping still be a thing? I mean, presumably it will be as long as we have this ridiculous stop sign rule where like you have to get to 0 miles per hour. Like that's just so why are we allowed to speed, but we have to go to zero? Like why is it okay to break some of the traffic laws on FSD? It doesn't make any sense to me. Um,
Exactly. Yes.
but yeah, I think the tap might be helpful if we have this stop sign issue.
So I'm sure you're even way more sophisticated than I am on this kind of stuff. And I don't really normally pay attention to volume, but I did notice that even with this huge run up today, volume was just normal. What does
Yeah.
that tell you? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, people will often say that that means there's more buyers than sellers. To which I will always say, no, no, no. Like buyers and sellers are always perfectly matched. So,
100%.
like that's always you can count on that. It's like your balance sheet will always balance, and buyers will always be matched with sellers. So yeah, but clearly, there are more people looking gosh, now here I'm falling into my own trap. Yeah, there's optimism, right? People are wanting to buy, at these elevated prices, because I think they're seeing all these things that we're seeing, and the pay package I think is a big piece of it. It's one thing to say like, for you and I to say, oh, I think Tesla could get to $8 trillion or something like that. It's a lot different for that to be like in the proxy statement, with an Elon
Right.
comp package out there. But so I think people are like, okay, back in 2019 or 2018, we also thought it was crazy and he delivered. So like, yeah, sure, maybe he can deliver and the company can go up so much from here.
The interesting thing is that's not what you're hearing. Now you're hearing them go, oh, 8 trillion. I mean, this is just a slam dunk. Why are you even paying them all this money to get to that number?
It is funny it's so true. But like I think the world has changed a lot just in the last 8 years though. Like I mean, Nvidia being a $4 trillion company, it's like I think a lot of people, myself included, back in 2018. Actually, it was probably more 2017 for me, but I remember thinking at the time, like, all right, Tesla, I could see the case for them being like a $1 trillion company if they like truly get to scale and have FSD like actually deliver Robotaxi. But
Sure.
I just had this like dumb heuristic in my mind that $1 trillion was like the maximum market cap companies can achieve, and, and so it took a while for me to be like, no, that's just like a made up limit because that's what like the current highest market cap companies are. Like there's no like law of physics that has to be the case. And so I think, when we're seeing so many companies at that $1 trillion mark in Nvidia where it is, I think it's a lot easier for people to get around the idea of a company that's 1 trillion, 1.5 trillion today, making that its way to 8 or higher.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, I think you're right. It is a lot easier pill to swallow, which is kind of funny.
So I don't remember my exact math on this, but if we ship like 4 more gigawatt hours of energy this quarter than we did last quarter, which I don't think is unrealistic. I think we were at 9.7 in the second quarter. Getting to 13.7 would not be crazy. I saw some some estimates from the community, not from the analysts, but from the community today that we're in the 13 range. One of them as high as 15, and my estimate is between 13 and 15. Do you have a number on the energy deployment that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I was actually just talking about that with with the client. My number is at 12
You're 12. Okay.
this quarter. So I mean, we know Lathrop is essentially running at a 10 gigawatt hour run rate. There can always be some timing difference between um, some intra-quarter kind of
Sure.
deployment. So maybe there's a bit of that noise that could make it slightly higher in one quarter. But for the most part, I feel like that's our baseline. A little bit more Powerwall on top of that. Maybe that brings it up to 11-ish. I think it's not even quite that high. And then the question becomes, all right, how many deployments are you getting out of Shanghai? And so far it's been like none.
Right.
So there will be some, but I think even as Shanghai ramps, like my best estimate is that it's nowhere near capacity yet. Like I don't even think it's at 50% of capacity.
Mhm.
And so if it's been ramping up, since January, I think it was, or when they started production, or was it late December even? I think
Yeah, I think it was before. Yeah, roughly.
for the earliest ones, but still, like cumulatively, it's been a small amount so far. So and I don't think the revenue recognition is always going to be a little different in China than it is in the United States with those projects. I would assume it's slightly faster, but still, I think you will have some amount of delay. So I just would struggle to see it being much more than 2 GWh cumulatively coming out of Shanghai to date. So that's why I'm kind of where I am at 12. Could they surprise to the upside? Yes, but I personally just don't see them kind of get into 14, 15 sort of range.
So I believe that the street is not thinking about 12 even, much less 13 or 14. And so 2 GW of additional energy storage shipments is worth more than 50,000 extra cars by a lot in terms of profits.
Yeah, I mean it is funny. Like, it used to be this sort of thing where I would like play around with my energy numbers and I'd be like, you know what, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
But now we're definitely at this point where like, oh shoot, that's an extra 5 cents if I adjust these numbers one way or another. So yeah, it's a pretty cool spot to be in, and like even 12 is going to be a lot lower than where we are this time next year.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
mean
again, if
that's
it's only 12 this quarter, then I think it's got to be big, much bigger in the fourth quarter because again, you'll get more Shanghai ramp. You'll have more. If it's only 12, that means you've accumulated more into that bookkeeping morass.
Mhm.
Moreover, if you're sitting at 12, that means you still haven't really picked up the second quarter on Lathrop because Lathrop was only we only got 9.7 total, so that seems like a dip as opposed to an upward slide. So I'm thinking we might be at 17 or 18 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at my numbers right now. I'm at 15 in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
So, I mean, like either one of us could be off
Yep.
there, and but like the overall trend is what really matters. I mean, going from 10 to 15, whether it's 15 or 18 in like
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
quarters. I mean, the real story is like, man, that's billions of incremental revenue and hundreds of millions of incremental margin. And then going into next year, like this trend just continues. I mean, like the thing that is hard to wrap your mind around is how like Elon is talking about, terawatt hours of storage. And so, yeah, we get excited about the ramp of Shanghai and like, okay, like what's the next one after that? And like, getting excited about, crossing into 100 gigawatt hours annually at some point in the near future. But man, what like that's going to feel like such small potatoes in the not too distant future, when there's literally billions and billions of dollars, like dollars of earnings per share coming off of the energy business. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
So I think it would be fair to say that the run up that we've seen over the last couple of days, not the whole run up for the entire month, which is like 32% or something for the last 30 days, not the entire run up, but especially the run up of the last few days is really about these numbers. And I don't know how much of the run up is Robotaxi and some of the other catalysts, that we have. And I've been making the claim that this is the most catalyst rich 90 days of any company I've ever seen in history. I'm just curious, maybe I'll run down catalysts and you let me know what you think might or might not happen. So we've got starting with version 14.
Definitely happening, and that is the one I'm probably the most bullish about, to be honest with you. Like I think that's such a big deal. We're gonna get videos of people doing it. You're gonna get butts and seats trying it. I think take rate goes up. We've already heard from one of the Tesla. I forget who it was that disclosed that take rate has actually increased markedly recently. So like that trend is going to continue too. And I don't think Wall Street analysts actually have the ability in their financial models to to have take rate going up because most haven't built it that way. So yeah, no, I think that's a very big deal and probably a bit of a sleeper
All right.
for Wall Street at
And,
least.
and instead of continuing down my list, let me just take a sidebar real quick. I'm figuring that we probably got enough orders yesterday and last week to carry us for the first quarter. I think that we won't see a lot of price uh, offerings and discounting in the first month of the fourth quarter in the United States. The rest of the world, it doesn't matter. We didn't have the end of the $7,500
Mhm.
credit anywhere else but here. So I'm thinking the first quarter is probably going to be covered by people that put in their orders late and just normal traffic after that. But I heard you guys talking on your show this week, and I had already been thinking this way. So I'm wondering if Tesla's thinking this way. What if the method that they would use to jumpstart sales in the third and second and third month of the quarter was to put together packages on the Y on virtually the entire line, including if there's a Model Q, just put in across the whole line, not a discount on FSD 14, but rather a package like they did on Cybertruck.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially whenever they launch a new product, they seem to do that. They'll go higher price variant first, make you buy FSD, all those sorts of things. So I think that trend is likely to continue. The only caveat which Bradford and I discussed on Tuesday would be, if you're introducing the Model Q or the Model Y, cheap version, whatever. I don't know how many buyers for a cheaper version of the Model Y with like a Lux package, there really will be. So, it might be more limited effectiveness than say when you were launching Cybertruck or the refreshed Model Y, where like demand was just off the charts and people are like, I will pay whatever to get one of these right away. So it may have like a more short shelf life, but I at least for that one product, but I do think they'll try to do some stuff to push that.
Here's how I see that group, and I think I see it a lot different than Gary Black, and maybe different than anybody else. I'm a product guy after all. Okay, I spent my entire life selling products, and as I see this product, there is a huge number of folks that have wanted a Tesla that couldn't
Mhm.
afford it. Wasn't
Yep.
in their price range. Wasn't in their price range in terms of getting a loan or on the car. They would be they wouldn't be qualified, or they
Mhm.
just can't see spending 42,000 or whatever. There's just a number. It's just a bridge
Yeah.
too far. And I think that there's that pent up group that if it's even as low, I saw this video today or video this X post today that maybe it's only going to be $5,000 cheaper. I'd be surprised. I think it will be less. I know you. I also know you have an opinion on that, so I'll let you
Yeah.
talk about it. But if it's only $5,000 less, there's still that group. There's that marginal buyer. I'm always looking at the marginal buyer. What does that $5,000 really mean? And in addition, let me finish my concept. Personally, I don't care about the sunroof. I'm saying if I was buying the car, I don't care about the sunroof. I prefer cloth. I
Okay.
certainly don't care about it. I certainly don't care about a TV in the back seat.
Yep.
Pretty much the things that are not going to be on this car are things that I wouldn't have cared about anyway. I'll
Mhm.
let you go.
Yeah. So I- if the $7,500 tax credit was still in place, then I would say there's going to be more pent up demand that could be realized with this because like you, I know a lot of people who fall in that category that you described that they just can't wrap their head around, paying, close to $40,000, maybe a little bit north of that, for a car. So if you had I don't know, let's say a $35,000 variant of a Model Y that was a lot cheaper, and you had the $7,500 tax credit, well, I think that opens up like a massive pool because now your
Right,
out the door price is sub 30.
right.
But with that tax credit being gone, then like you're really at the point where like that group still their net out the door price is going to be very similar to what it was yesterday,
Mm.
when the $7,500 tax credit was there. So I think there will be some people who go for that, and I think in the longer term, like the absence of that tax credit, like you want to have some lower priced option to scoop up those people who maybe can afford that but can't afford the base Model Y, that's where that's priced right now. So I think it's a good thing, but I'm not necessarily of the opinion that it's going to stoke massive new demand, at least in the United States, because your net out the door price is actually going to be higher going forward than it was in Q3 and earlier.
Now, if it's $10,000 off, though, which again, this ability to read the information, in the somehow in the code, doesn't necessarily mean that that is the final price. That could have been a price that was just put in there for as a holding place. So the price can come out less. There could also be this creaming of the price in the beginning, as I
Hmm.
always did whenever I sold any product, if possible, is I always try to get that high price first for the early adopters. But let's say that the real price is $10,000 under the Model Y, Or maybe there's also a Model 3 version that's 10,000 under the Model 3 as it stands right
Mhm.
now. That would seem to me to break open new territory.
Yeah, so I would agree with that you there. My disagreement would be I don't think they're going to get to 10,000 and I don't think they'll get much more savings than $5,000. I mean the type of stuff that we're talking about here, getting rid of the glass roof, getting rid of the screens in the back, some lower quality materials. I don't think if you sum up the cost savings on all those things, you get to even $5,000, let alone, 7,500 or something like that. Or let alone 10,000. So, I don't think they'll get there. Yeah, I think the goal with Cybercab is to really, drive down that price to the, call it $25,000 range.
Mhm.
That's where they want to have like the true like unboxed process and everything like that. And it sounds like from everything we've been able to piece together from what Tesla said, like we're getting like a step in the direction of the unboxed process. We're not getting the
Oh,
full
sure.
shebang,
Oh,
let
yeah.
alone like the size, the complexity of the Cybercab is going to be a lot smaller. There'll be less materials cost, everything like that in the Cybercab, as opposed to some slimmed down Model Y. So I just don't. I'm skeptical that they'd get to that level of cost savings.
So when do you think the Model Q will be introduced?
Well, how are we defining the Model Q? Because
I
like
don't
there's
care.
the
Whatever. I think there's only one or two products.
hmm
Elon talked in terms of models.
hmm
So the most likely thing for me would be whatever it is. It's for the Y and the 3. So it could be a Model Y short. It could be and maybe there's no Model 3 short in that case. I don't know. Whatever it's going to be, though, I think it'll all be introduced at once. That's just me.
hmm
When do you think the key here is this a month away or is this something that happens over the weekend or something?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we're seeing some stuff in code makes me think we're relatively close to it. I don't think it'll be more than a month out. Now it was supposed to be first half of the year, and that
Right,
clearly didn't
right,
happen.
right.
So
Well, there was a good
got to
reason
take.
for that.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. Um, So I would expect, in the next couple of weeks, I'm not necessarily expecting over the weekend, but like just introduce the Model Y Performance today. So like you've got that bit of a soft launch for sure.
Mhm.
We're, day one literally of ha not having the credit in place. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I would suspect that Tesla wants to kind of see what that new order rate looks like and get an idea of pricing. So I think if for no other reason than that and wanting to gauge kind of demand, how aggressive do we need to be on pricing and everything like that? Because there will be some cannibalization. So like Tesla's going to need to take a lot of different variables into effect when they introduce this. So I think they want at least a couple of weeks worth of
Data.
demand
Mhm.
data to make that type of decision. So I would think, in a month or so by the latest, we get that answer, but I wouldn't expect it over the weekend necessarily.
All right. When do you think robotaxi is actually going to become a thing? When is it going to become an actual business where, where there's no ride-along guy, there's more than 12 cars? What's that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be like slowly and then kind of all at once. So like the big question in my mind is V14, whatever version that they're going to have, that's going to be presumably they'll have like V14 and some adjustment to that based on, Austin and the Bay Area in all these areas that they're operating. And is that actually safe enough to remove the safety observer? I suspect even when they get to the point where that's demonstrably true, they're probably still going to take some time because, you want to like say, hey, safety observers haven't had to push a button for a month. Like, we feel good about taking them out now because the worst thing to do would be take them out a little bit earlier, based on some preliminary data, and then you have some bad accident, and your judgment's being questioned. So, I think Tesla's still going to be slow. It would not surprise me at all if we have the safety driver in, for the rest of this year. I would think at some point early next year that they come out and that's going to open the floodgates to truly expanding a lot more aggressively. Um, but so as I've been kind of modeling this out, like just like slow increases in total vehicles, de minimis this year, de minimis for the first half of next year, but by the second half of next year, I think I'd be surprised. I'd be very surprised if the safety monitors are not out by then. And at that point, you can really be as aggressive as you want, I think, in terms of how many you put out there. So that's
So
that's my
what,
thinking.
So what are they going to do with all those cyber cabs that they're going to make in the first quarter if they don't have any if they don't have any place to go with them?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can still produce them, and I would think that the safety observer comes out in Q1. Like that I'd be disappointed if it takes into Q2. I'll stick my neck out at least that far.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, Tesla can do a couple things. One, they can just like delay production a little bit. We've seen that many times in their history where they've, changed plans. I mean, we never hear about Giga Mexico anymore. So like none of these plans are set in stone for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think even if they have some kind of vision that it's going to be safe enough to really scale this, just to pick a date, let's say by early Q3, and the plan is ready to start ramping in Q1. It probably still makes sense to start that ramping because Elon has always talked about it's going to be overnight the single biggest asset value increase in history. And if that's true, and these like you are going to have a market, like if we can just accept the fact that you got like a very massive market, more than you can produce in all of 2026 for cyber cabs
Mhm.
nationwide, let's say, then you want that S curve of production to be as progressed as possible, even if it means like you're like the ones that you produce between like this area and this area are just sitting in a lot for a few months. Like it's still better to do that than to push the entire S curve out by a couple
Mm,
months,
yeah, yeah.
because you're going to be maximizing value that way.
Okay. So then apparently, based on all of that, you don't think Elon's estimate that the unsupervised will be available by the end of the year. You must be thinking that's going to be 2026 as well.
I mean, I want that to be true. But if I had to, go on Polymarket or whatever and make a bet, I would take the over.
Okay.
And it might be true that like in maybe some people within Austin, let's say, could put it into the or could use it in that particular area unsupervised by year end. Maybe, but even that seems like a stretch. Like if we still have safety monitors in these geofenced locations, I don't know how we would make the leap that we're going to have customers in their own back seat by, in the next 3 months.
I have more questions for you about my list here, but I'm running out of time. You have a hard cutoff, so I have to ask you these general questions about the economy because I know you pay attention to this stuff. So I did a little analysis earlier today. The S&P has been averaging 5% per quarter growth in 2023, 2024, and now through three quarters of 2025. Tom Lee said he thought we would get to 6,600. He said then later on he says, well, maybe we'll get to 6,700. Now we're over 6,700 and we still have a quarter to go. Are we going to be at 7,100 by the end of the year?
I mean, I always am cautious to make short-term predictions like that. But I think what seems clear to me though is if you rewind the clock to earlier this year when the market was actually down pretty significantly, going into April and
Right.
Liberation Day and all that insanity. People were reasonably like very significantly scared of a major recession brought about by these tariffs.
Because they
Um,
didn't listen to my show. If they listened to Jeff Lutz and me, they would have known it was not an issue.
That's why we need to get some broader circulation of this excellent content out there. I'm on board. But like it's like nobody's talking about that right now, and all the economic data. Like I mean, look at how strong. Like Q2 was revised upwards to 3.8%. If you look at the Q3 on Atlanta Fed GDP now, 3.9% GDP growth. Like nobody's talking about a recession. And instead, it's like, okay, how significant will GDP growth be? And there's like jobs concerns and inflation concerns, like some of this stuff that on the margins people are a little bit concerned about. But based on how strong the underlying economy has been, to me, it's not surprising at all that the economy has rebounded or the stock market has performed the way that it has. Now, will that continue? That's the $1 million question, right? If any investor could actually figure that out on a short-term basis, then it wouldn't be you could be on a private island somewhere, making these trades. So what I would say is like I'm very bullish on like the economy and therefore on the markets in general over the next 5 years plus. But my underlying thesis is just like AI growth is going to lead to massive GDP growth, and massive GDP growth is going to lead to like even more massive
Right.
stock market return growth. So I think there will be a lot of losers along the way. I think there's going to be some volatility. I don't think it's all going to be, rainbows and unicorns along the way, but I am very bullish on overall. But it wouldn't surprise me if we have some sort of correction in 3 months, but I'm also not banking on that.
Okay, so we had the jobs numbers today from ADP, which was negative, which by the way, I predicted. I didn't predict it absolutely to be negative. I just said it's probably going to be around zero, plus or 20,000, plus or minus 20,000. I'm not expecting any growth in jobs at all right now. Again, maybe
Mhm.
20,000 a month, 30,000 a month on a good month. There's so many reasons why we would not have job growth, including net out migration, including no growth in government jobs. I mean, there's so many
Mhm.
reasons why we shouldn't have growth in the job market right now. But the big one is, of course, what you just mentioned is AI. And I think it was Chair Powell who said that we're at the tip of the spear on that starting to affect jobs.
Mhm.
And tip of the spear, I think what he's talking about, which I keep hearing a lot of different people talking about, is no, we're not firing anybody because of AI, but we're also not hiring anybody even as we grow. So
Yeah.
company after company says, well, we grew 20%, but we didn't have to hire anybody. You guys were talking about Lemonade. They've grown how much in the last 2 years? And they got the same overhead that they did before the growth. So right now it seems as if the real story is, yeah, we're using AI, and yeah, we're getting a lot more productivity out of our employees, but we're still not laying anybody off because we're training these people to be extremely productive, and now they've become way more valuable.
Yeah, which is like exactly why I'm so bullish on, the market in general, because yeah, maybe it's not amazing job growth, and from a societal perspective, it's a different conversation of like, do you start need to paying your workers more if they are really being this much more efficient? How much is the company scooping of that productivity gain versus how much of that's being shared with the employees? I think those are all like reasonable questions that we should grapple with as a society. But when I start putting my investor hat on, I'm saying, man, I love that trend. Like companies are going to be able to do more with less, which means operating leverage, which means higher earnings growth, which means like when people start talking about like PE ratios and how high they are relative to historical levels, well, the earnings is going to be growing a lot more than they ever have before, generally speaking, to the extent that this trend is true. And so that makes me, happy to pay higher multiples on some companies because the earnings growth that they're going to be able to extract by leaning on AI is going to be higher than what I think the market is expecting.
If I remember correctly, you are something of a specialist in the area of oil and natural gas. I've been following oil. It's pretty easy right now. The headlines are pretty clear. OPEC is going to talk about upping their amounts a great deal, and so we got the oil prices coming down. But I can't find any articles on natural gas, which is rocketed from under $2 to like $2.40 or something. Is this just going into winter business, or what do we got going on?
Yeah, so I'd say I'm more of an electricity,
Okay.
market kind of specialist than oil and gas, but natural gas definitely plays right into that. You know, like I would say that the rest of the world would be thrilled to have $2.40 natural gas. So even though it is a significant uptick from where we've been historically, when I left the electricity sector, gosh, 8 years ago, whenever that was, no, it wasn't quite that long, but 5 years ago. Um, the prevailing thesis at the time was that natural gas was going to be, $5 or $3 an MMBTU forever, just because that was kind of like, the point at which these, producers could start bringing on more production. So the fact that we've actually, gone down to two and now we're like coming back up to, 250 or so, to me, it's like that's still found money as
I
far as
see.
I'm concerned, because like that's still so cheap in the grand scheme of things that we should all be very happy with that. There certainly is seasonality. There are a lot of companies and states that will try to take advantage of that. By Michigan is one example where they'll buy a lot of natural gas in the summer months, actually compress it into
Right.
underground rock formations so that you can extract it during the colder winter months. But that doesn't offset all the natural gas that you need in winter months. So my suspicion, without having done a huge amount of research on this, would just be that it's probably more seasonal than anything.
So nobody at this point in history, absolutely nobody can claim to be an expert on gold. because nobody, well, maybe one person, talked about gold being at 4,000 or whatever. I'm sorry, which level are we? Are we going for five? No, going for four, right? We're at
Yeah,
3,900 now.
I,
It's,
you know,
it's,
I,
it's
I don't
gone up.
even. I know it's high. I just haven't been like
I'm
watching it so
forgetting, I'm
closely.
forgetting the, it's, yeah, let's see here. It's going to be 39, just under 3,900. It's actually peaked above 3,900 earlier this week and now back slightly under 3,900. Do you have any clue as to what happens with gold? Is this all based on the dollar coming down 10%, 11%? Or is it based on, all the Chinese and North Koreans and Japanese warehousing? I guess the amount of gold in other companies' reserves has finally, the combined total of all the rest of the world's reserves has now passed the United States for the first time.
Yeah, the treasury holdings that those countries are holding. So yeah, I mean that does seem to be an important milestone. I mean, we've been talking about this, fiscal situation in the United States for a very long time, and as many strides as the Trump administration is making on, kind of reducing the deficit and bringing in additional revenues from import tariffs and all that sort of stuff, like still it's like making the tiniest dent overall in the deficit. So the trend is certainly still very much in place that um, the fiscal uh, trustworthiness. I'm kind of blanking on my phrases here, but the United States fiscal situation is not looking pretty good, which I think a natural consequence of that would be that you start holding more gold, you start holding more digital gold and other types of assets. So I think it's probably driven by a combination of these countries holding this in higher quantities, as you said. But it's also some speculation, I'm sure, from people who are seeing these trends. But I think it all comes down to the government, kind of situation. I would think, and not just in the United States, but kind of worldwide. We've got increasing fiscal situation, and then also just, I mean, political uncertainty. I mean, I think just the tenor in the country, the political divisiveness seems very high in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination and all that. So I'm not sure that has a massive impact on it, but when things get a little dicey, people start thinking about bunkers and gold and canned goods. So I think there's a slight bit of that contributing to it as well.
And when all of your friends bought a $2,000 bar of gold from Costco last year, and now it's worth almost 4,000, it kind of makes you think, should I go out and buy myself a bar from Costco when it comes up next month? Okay, so last subject is the 10-year. So there might be a play. Here's my play. And this is not investment advice, even close to investment advice. In fact, I'm not even making a call. And I've made multiple calls this year on the 10-year. I said
Okay.
it would never go above five, and it didn't. I said it would, and then when it was 4.5, I said buy, 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 buy. And then I said it would not go above 4.15, and I was wrong. It went up for 3 days above 4.15. It's now back down to 4.1. So I've been pretty good on making my calls this year on the 10-year, but here's the play. Gold way over its skis. Bonds still way too high a yield. Buy
Mhm.
bonds, sell gold might turn out to be one of the best deals ever in history, because I think there's going to be a big run up on bonds, maybe dropping a full 100 basis points, and gold certainly could easily come down 10%. Now, it may have to get to 4,000 before it drops back down 10%, but what do you think? What do you think of my play?
Yeah, it seems interesting. I mean, I'm admittedly like an equities only kind of investor, so I don't do these types of trades, but like structurally, what you're talking about, it makes sense to me. So I could see why somebody would put on that kind of type of basis trade almost.
Right. It's almost like an unwinding.
Yeah, yeah,
It's almost
yeah.
like an unwinding. All right, let's see. Last question then. I thought that was the last question, but I still have 2 minutes left. So what do you think is going to happen to Optimus between now and the end of the year? Will we get a significant um, demo,
Yes, at the Investor Day
investor day?
in October 6th, I think we're gonna have many Optimi there, dancing, doing all sorts of stuff. So I think we're gonna see some stuff there. Now, I don't think they'll do like a full product demo kind of unveiling all the inner workings of it necessarily, because that's a lot of secret sauce still, and they typically like to do stuff like that for a dedicated event, especially for like a new groundbreaking product. So I don't think it'll kind of turn into a Investor Day plus massive Optimus product update, but I do think we'll at least see the Optimus there and get a little bit of warm fuzzies about how much progress they're making.
All right. Well, as always, really cool to have you on board. And of course, everybody should come follow you at the Teslanaires, at
Rebellionaire.
Rebellionaires, because you are Teslanaires. I'll get it straight here. Just give me a minute. But Matt Smith, good having you on. We got to do this more often. And any last words of wisdom for the crowd?
No, just thanks so much for having me on, Randy. And the last thing I would say is just congratulations to everyone who's dealt with the last 4 years of being a Tesla investor. It's been a journey, but it certainly is feeling good to start being on the validating end of the stock price move. So thanks for having me on, and great talking with you.
All right. And great talking to all of you out there.